You got to pump it up, don't you know? Pump it up. You got to pump it up, don't you know? Pump it up. You got to pump it up, don't you know? Pump it up. You got to pump it up, don't you know? Pump it up. You got to pump it up, don't you know? Pump it up.
Come on, Trent. I need a little more energy from you over there. There you go.
Here we go. Pump it up, don't you know? Pump it up. You got to pump it up, don't you know?
This is a tough team right here.
That's the remix. That's the remix.
Gonna sell some albums doing that.
Love it. Love it. Hello and happy Monday to all three people in here.
We're back.
We are back. It's been a long day, man. It's been a really long day. A lot of recruiting news happening. Things are getting pretty active on the recruiting trail. We spent, I don't know, we've been on here for about 20 minutes or so, just kind of talking about, you know, some of the things we wanted to go through. And obviously there's a lot happening recruiting wise, and we're in a completely different spot today than we were the last time that you and I went live. So we'll get into that a little bit. I think Trent and I are going to plan on doing a bit of a deeper dive into the recruiting side of things on the next show. And Trent's actually working on some interesting things with one recruit in particular. So we might have some interesting content there. But in any event, man, it's been a solid day, a solid stretch for the Michigan Wolverines on the recruiting trail. And kudos to Sharon Moore and staff for what they've been able to do. Before we get into that, Trent, I do want to say that over the weekend, I had the opportunity to go to Chrysler Center, which was just, you know, I told you this when I got on the phone with you earlier. Every time that I've done something with the National Guard, the Michigan Army National Guard, it's led to some sort of like just ridiculous experience that I never thought I would have. Like whether I'm like tethered and hanging out the back of a Chinook, you know, flying over Michigan Stadium, doing the flyover for the UNLV game, or like what happened on Saturday where, you know, we were at Chrysler Center and they were doing a leadership summit. And so they brought out Colson Loveland and Donovan Edwards to meet with, you know, younger kids and basically talk with them about the importance of leadership and all the qualities that go into that. And after the event was, I knew it was going to happen because Donovan Edwards, he mentioned it when he walked on the court, he was like, oh, we're going to have to shoot hoops. We're going to have to play ball. And I'm like, I feel like he's really trying to play some ball. So once the event was over and everybody cleared out, the guys stayed behind. And then we ended up just like shooting around for a little while. My kids were down there running around, and I put out some pictures and I put out a video on social media. But I'll say this. I don't think Dusty May is going to be going after Donovan Edwards anytime soon. No offense to Dono. We know he's a hell of a running back, phenomenal athlete. Dude, he's put on a ton of muscle. Like watching him out there shoot around, I'm like, this guy's bricked up. Like he's ready to go. But he was also bricked up in terms of shooting as well. There were a lot of bricks that were out there when they weren't air balls. But dude, Colson Loveland is legitimate. I said this on social. I think he's a guy that could play D1 basketball. I mean, the guy like picked up the ball and it was like swish, swish, swish. Like anywhere he was on the court, like ball handling skills were there. He's got the athleticism. And so, yeah, should probably keep Dusty May away from him. But that was just an incredible, you talk about like experiences you have in this industry and you find yourself doing certain things that you never thought you would do. And that was one of those moments. Like, you know, my son and my daughter are out there dribbling a ball around and Dono's over there, like passing the ball with him. He asked my son, he's like, you want to play one-on-one? And like, it was kind of a surreal experience. So every time I'm in one of those moments, I try not to take it for granted. And I try to remind myself that like, this is pretty incredible to be able to do this sort of thing. And I really think it speaks to the line of work that we're in. So shout out to the National Guard once again for putting on a really cool event. And anytime you get to spend some time around this team, this group of guys, you really get a sense of how special the group is, how much leadership there is, the type of maturity. Like, dude, when I was in college, when I was that age, I wasn't anywhere near that level of maturity. You're still a spring chicken. I mean, you're only like what, 30 years old. So you're not
30. Yeah.
You're not too far removed from it. But I mean, as a 40-year-old man, not like, I feel like we almost have the same level of maturity. I feel like I'm talking to equals when I'm talking to these kids. And then I remember what I was like in college. I was a shithead back then compared to these guys.
Hey, so, Chris, were you a better basketball player than Donovan Edwards?
No, I wasn't. Like, you think
You're
like,
saying Dusty May doesn't want you either, for sure. Like, for sure. Like,
no.
nothing
First of all, I was sweating my ass off. I was running up and down the stairs the whole time. I was going outside to try to get film of the kids coming in, inside, up and down. I was all over the place. And then I started playing basketball. I was just like a hot mess, like an out of shape 40-year-old dad and husband who really doesn't do much cardio. Like that's what I looked like out there. And you think like you can pick up the ball and yeah, you could just make a shot. And then you get out there and you're in this big arena and your depth perception is all off. And dude, I was airballing them left and right. It was actually a pretty embarrassing display. So I put the ball down and started focusing on getting content instead. But again, it was a really cool event, and shout out to the Michigan Army National Guard for letting me be a part of it as always. Let's dive into the news of the day. Obviously, we're talking about recruiting. Michigan has been on a heater as of late. And I said this before we really got started here, man. But dude, the last time we went live, we were slightly concerned about Michigan recruiting. I believe they were sitting either just inside or just outside of the top 50. There really wasn't a lot of juice on the trail. We were wondering, where's the momentum? When are things going to start to pick up? You yourself said, hey, if things look this way come July 1st, like then there's going to be a time to be concerned. And in the week and a half since we last went live, there has been a ton of action on the recruiting trail. Michigan now up to 12 commitments in the 2025 class. Just going to run through them real quick. And then like I said, Trent and I are going to do a bit of a deeper dive on some of these recruits in the next show. But you got Kanoa Winston, 4-star safety, Nate Marshall, 4-star defensive lineman, Jalen Williams, 4-star defensive lineman. Avery, did we decide, is it Avery Gatch or Gash? Did we decide on that?
I think it's Gash.
Let's just go with Gash until somebody corrects us. 4-star offensive lineman, Chase Taylor, 3-star linebacker, Bobby Kanka, 3-star offensive lineman, Carter Smith, 3-star quarterback, Jacob Washington, who is a commit today, 3-star wide receiver, Donovan Johnson, 3-star running back, Trent, who you are a lot higher on, and maybe I'll have you elaborate on him in a bit. Eli Owens, a 3-star tight end, Caden Strayhorn, 3-star offensive lineman. Turns out Michigan State just didn't want that guy anyway, right? But I mean, His dad is on the Michigan State Board of Education, deep ties to Michigan State there. Caden decides to become a Wolverine over the weekend, which is a beautiful thing. And then Jasper Parker, 3-star running back as well. So specifically, Trent, when you look at this list and everybody that's sort of committed over the last, week or so, who are some of those guys that get you really excited? Before we went live, you talked about Donovan Johnson specifically at the running back position. What do you like about that?
Yeah, I was kind of doing a little bit of a deep dive on Donovan Johnson. He did not play his junior season. He tore his ACL. He's out of IMG Academy. But going back to last season, he was actually a top 50 recruit in the 2025 cycle. The dude has all the offers you could possibly want to see. He has Alabama, he had Georgia, Florida State, Oklahoma, Ohio State.
Yeah, but Ohio State didn't want him.
Yeah, you're right. Ohio State, they're out of the picture. They didn't want him.
I'd like to know where Lou Holtz is right now.
He's I watched his tape. The dude's super quick. He hold on, I have a stat right here I wanted to share. During his sophomore season, he ran for 1,336 yards and 10 touchdowns. And I don't know, watching his tape, I just feel like he's going to make some noise at Michigan. Maybe not right away. Michigan's absolutely loaded at the running back position, but he definitely intrigues me. And I want to do even more of a deeper dive on him, but just looking at the stats and where he was in the rankings, it's impressive.
Yeah, it's really impressive. And like I said, the last time that we went live, Michigan was just outside of the top 50 looking in. And I specifically remember saying, I'm like, I don't care what month it is. I don't care if it's March, April, May, June, whatever. Like Michigan should never be outside of the top 50. And now as we sit here today, nearing the end of June, Michigan is 17th nationally. So they've risen up pretty quickly there, 5th in the Big Ten, but there's plenty more coming. I mean, you're talking about Hardy Watts, a 4-star offensive lineman, Andrew Olish, a 4-star tight end, Andrew Marsh, a 4-star wide receiver. There's guys that are on Michigan's list that are probably going to commit in the coming days and coming weeks. And we're going to see Michigan continue to rise in the rankings. And so when you look at the quality of guys that they're getting, and this is something that, Jared Johnson from the Michigan Army National Guard, he was talking to me a lot about this, but Michigan from a national perspective is ranked 7th in the country in average ranking per recruit. So I think a lot of this gets lost because, you see like Rutgers ranked higher than Michigan, but that's because Rutgers got like 30 commits at this point in time. But when you look at the average rating per recruit, Michigan ranks 7th nationally. The only teams ahead of Michigan right now are Clemson, Alabama, Georgia, Oregon, LSU, and Ohio State. So when you look at all of those programs and you put Michigan in the mix, that feels like a pretty solid place for Michigan to be. And then when you factor in, it's an entirely new coaching staff, all of the transition that took place. Yes, Michigan won at a high level in 2023, but dude, like how long ago does that national championship feel like at this point? It feels like it was like a year ago. For Michigan to still continue to be able to recruit at the level they are right now, given all the changes that have taken place, man, I think that really speaks highly to Sharon Moore, the staff he's put in place, and what they're able to do in Ann Arbor. And like I said, there's more commitments coming. This isn't the end of it. There's more big-time names that are going to commit to the University of Michigan in the coming days. And so we're going to let this cycle play itself out and see where all the chips fall. But at some point in time here in the near future, we're going to hop on and do a deeper dive into these guys because I really think they're picking up some solid pieces in the 2025 class. Yeah,
and that's the one thing that I was really high on when Sharon Moore was making all these moves, bringing these guys in. It's a younger group, other than Wink Martindale, it's an extremely young group, and I feel like they're ferocious recruiters.
Why you gotta single out Wink Martindale like that?
Sorry, Wink. But I just feel like this is going to be a different Michigan than what it was under Jim Harbaugh. Harbaugh went out and he was able to land guys like JJ McCarthy and Blake Corum and these big stars. But I just feel like overall, I think we're going to see a boost in recruiting because of the younger staff. I feel like they're go-getters, and Sharon Moore's young. He's ready to take Michigan under his wings as a head coach. He wants to show the world what he can do as a young head coach.
Yeah, man, I totally agree, and can see it coming in. We'll take guys from IMG all day long. Completely agree with you there, Bobby. Troy Flynn asks, where did it go here? He says, over under top 10 in recruiting. I think I asked you this question before, and I'm assuming, Troy, you mean from a national standpoint. Michigan right now, I've seen, last I saw they were 17th. Bobby from the Facebook page is saying they're top 15 now, according to 247 Sports. By the time this thing is all said and done, Trent, where do you think Michigan finishes from a national standpoint with the recruiting class? Because we know Michigan's not done, but we know other teams aren't done either. And so ultimately, where do you think this class falls 2025?
I think last time I said 12th. I'm going to say between 10 and 12 once again. I feel like Michigan's going to have a strong finish. I think they're going to get guys. However, I don't view them getting many 5 stars. Yeah. I mean, maybe not even one, I don't know. But you're going to have teams like Ohio State and Oregon and Alabama who's going to have several 5 stars that's going to boost them up the rankings. So I feel like a 10 to 12 place finish for Michigan is probably realistic.
I agree. I mean, again, when you try to take the fandom out, and in one of the later segments we'll get to, we'll see how difficult it is for me to take the fandom out. Trent knows we were going through a dry run before we went live, but if Sharon Moore can come in and get this recruiting class within the top 10, I think that's an incredible place to be. I see people saying 8th or 9th or 10th. I mean, the reality is this is looking like it's going to be a top 10 class nationally. And again, I think that just speaks to what Sharon Moore, the message that he's conveying to some of these kids, because there's a lot of change. And whenever you lose a guy like Jim Harbaugh to the NFL, it's like, you're not just losing like a Mel Tucker type coach. You know what I mean? Like, you're talking about an elite head football coach, arguably one of the best football coaches to ever come through the college ranks. And when you lose a guy like that, it's not easy to replace. But I think Sharon Moore has proven that he's got the ability to coach at a high level. We saw what he did against Ohio State, stepped in big games last year and helped get Michigan to where they need to be. I do have this question, though, because I've seen this pop up, and I wonder, and Joseph from the Facebook page asks, he says it's all about NIL. Do you get a sense that Michigan is playing more of the NIL game now with recruiting than they might have been under Jim Harbaugh in previous years?
I want to say yes. I don't know how much. I don't think they're throwing. I've seen some stuff floating around there the last couple of days that Michigan's out there throwing bags at these guys. I don't believe that for a minute. I believe in Michigan probably is dipping into a little bit more NIL than what they were before. but I don't think they're on the same.
I haven't seen any Lamborghinis parked outside of Schembechler Hall or anything like that. So they're not going to that level.
Yeah, I don't think they're on the level of Ohio State or Texas or any of those other teams that are literally like flaunting the money in front of these recruits. I don't think they're doing that. I feel like Michigan's pitch is, we're Michigan. Here's what we've done. Here's what we can do for you. I don't think it's not about the money with Michigan. However, yeah, I feel like they probably are getting into it a little bit more than what they were under Harbaugh.
CJ says he doesn't think it's changed that quickly. They might be throwing snack bags, but not bags. Yeah, you know what? I think it's hard to say because it's all speculation. You know what I mean? I don't know what promises and what offers are being made to high school kids, but I will say this. I do think if Michigan is going to evolve from an NIL standpoint, and obviously Ward Manuel is going to have a say in that and evolve his line of thinking, but I do think that Michigan will be willing to, I guess, go further in that direction with Sherrone Moore leading the way than they would with a guy like Jim Harbaugh leading the way. It's not a knock against Jim Harbaugh. I just think he's an old school guy and had a certain way of looking at things. And even like when you look at the way the team evolved in like the last few years of the program, like he had to change some things. Like they went from not playing music at practices to playing music at practices. Like he went and got younger on his staff. You go out and you get a guy like Mike McDonald. You get a guy like Jesse Minter. You get guys that resonate more with some of these younger recruits. And so, Jim had to learn new ways and new tactics and doing things. But from what I understand, like Jim Harbaugh was not the biggest fan of the way that NIL works, and certainly wasn't the biggest fan of paying to get recruits to come to the University of Michigan. I'm not saying that Sherrone Moore is that guy and he's going to do that, but I think if Michigan is going to evolve from an NIL standpoint and start to compete at the level of some of these other bigger programs, I think Sherrone Moore is a guy that can help get them there. I think he's going to be more receptive to that. So we'll see. I agree with CJ. I don't think they're going to be handing out bags of cash anytime soon, but it does seem like maybe Michigan's more willing to do those things.
I feel like the NCAA could be like, hey, Michigan, here's $5 million, do whatever you want with it. And I don't think they'd be giving that much of that money out to recruits. I just don't think it's something that they want to do.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the whole mantra at the University of Michigan, ever since NIL became a thing, is come here and the earning potential is high, but we're not going to pay you to come here. And I think it's an admirable stance to take. Like I think that's what NIL is supposed to be, right? But we just know that, and Trent, you and I have talked about this a number of times on the show. Like NIL has essentially become pay for play, and that's what a lot of programs around the country are using. I mean, there's a reason why Jeremiah Smith is in Columbus right now, and yeah, I get that they have a habit of producing big time wide receivers, but dollars certainly played a part in that. And Ohio State's been very open about how much NIL dollars they're floating out for various things, and so it would be nice to see Michigan move a little bit further in that direction, but I don't think they're going to fully commit like some of the other programs out there that are going head first. What I want to do is I want to transition a little bit into a different topic. And I saw that somebody brought it up here in the comments. Let me see if I could go back up. It's about what we've heard could be coming from the NCAA. Blah, 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 blah. Let me go back up here. Steve Wolf from the Facebook page. He said, have you guys got anything more to add on what Chris Ballas, who's with the Wolverine at On3, he wrote the other day about the sign stealing BS, and Ballas said that it is being called the biggest overblown scandal in sports history. Trent, I asked you about this before we went live and we chatted about it. The rumors are that there's some sort of announcement supposedly coming soon from the NCAA regarding all of this stuff. Could come as soon as this week. And we talked about how severe we think whatever punishment they're going to dish out could be. And I'm wondering, when you take a look at what Michigan has done on the recruiting trail, when you take a look at the staff that Sherrone Moore has been able to put in place, because he didn't bring scrubs into Ann Arbor. These are guys that were in coordinator positions elsewhere. Wink Martindale's got a 20-year career in the NFL. Like, these are guys who are well-established. And then, oh, by the way, he was able to go get Tony Alford and Aaron Dunston out of Columbus and bring them up to Ann Arbor. And so do you think all of these things are really signaling that whatever punishment people were, some people were hoping for from the NCAA, not to name any names,
tough team right here.
But do you think that whatever punishment is coming, I mean, to Steve's question here, has been overblown and that we're really not going to see much of anything come of it?
Yeah, I mean, too. I do think it's been overblown. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Charlie Baker even came out and said that there was no proof that they could find to Connor Stallions, to Jim Harbaugh even knowing about anything. And that right there, I feel like is huge. If they can't prove that Jim Harbaugh or Sharon Moore or Kurt Campbell, as long as they didn't know about it, I don't think they're going to be able to do much to Michigan. If Connor Stallions was a lone wolf in this, yeah, I mean, I don't think a whole lot's going to come of it. And I fully believe that's why it's taken so long, because the NCAA is doing everything they can to try to find some sort of proof that they can present to Michigan. Hey, we know that Jim Harbaugh knew. Hey, we knew that Sharon Moore knew about this, but they can't do it. And I believe that's why it's taken so long. I don't think Michigan fully knows what it's going to get from the NCAA, but I believe they have some inside knowledge, knowing that it's not going to be too severe, or they wouldn't be able to go out and land these transfer portal targets. They couldn't get these recruits. They couldn't get the staff members they've gotten if they knew that they were going to get some severe punishment. So yeah, I mean, I'm not buying that it's going to be severe at all.
Yeah, I agree, man. And I think part of that is also the fact that, when you look at this transition, and the worst thing that could happen for the NCAA was for Jim Harbaugh to leave, because I think ultimately that was their target. And that was, if you believe that report that came out a couple of weeks ago, I think it was shared on CBS Sports about, it's part of a book that's supposed to be coming out soon, where Jim Harbaugh was sort of walking through these scenarios with lawyer Tom Mars. And the belief was that the NCAA was going to get him somehow, and he could serve up to a 6-game suspension, could miss half of the season. Like, with Harbaugh out of the equation and now in the NFL, you're right. I just don't know that there's enough substance to where you could come at the University of Michigan and say, okay, the wins aren't going to be taken away. I think we can count on that. Like, if you're looking for an asterisk somewhere like that, that's not going to happen. If there was some sort of scholarship limitation or something like that, like, that's the most I can see coming from this. I just can't see there being any sort of everybody that was hoping that this hammer is going to drop on the Michigan football program. Trent, you're right. Like, I find it very hard to believe that if you're a coach possibly coming from Columbus up to Ann Arbor and you're making that move, that this isn't part of the discussion that you're having with some of the leadership at the University of Michigan. Like, what is your thought on this? Where do you think this whole thing is heading? Again, to your point, guys that you're getting out of the transfer portal, what are the conversations being had on the recruiting trail? There's no indication whatsoever that Michigan is about to face anything severe, because they're doing well in all facets of the program. Recruiting is doing well. Coaching staff looks great. Transfer portal looks great. And they didn't lose any of their marquee players during the offseason when they lost a premier head coach and a good chunk of the coaching staff along with him. So I think all of those things speak to what Steve Wolf is bringing up here. And look, I didn't read Chris's report. I don't really follow the On3 stuff over there, but I mean, if he's saying that, like, I don't know, take it for what it is. For me personally, I'm just like, look at what's happening with the Michigan football program. Do you see any indication that something bad is coming? And no, not from recruiting, not from the coaching staff, not from the transfer portal. Like, there's no indication that something like that is going to happen. And I do find it interesting because when I mentioned it at the beginning of the show, when I was at the National Guard event, I thought that this was a pretty telling thing. Colson Loveland was speaking to, the group in attendance there, and he actually brought up what it was like at the University of Michigan in the locker room when Jim Harbaugh decided to leave, what that transition was like. And I thought the quote he gave was really interesting because, Trent, you know this and I know this, and probably a lot of fans will remember this, but we spent a lot of time worrying about, are we going to lose Will Johnson? Are we going to lose Kenneth Grant? What's happening with Mason Graham? Is Colston Loveland going to be gone? And there was a lot of rumors on social media that these guys were being targeted. And Colston Loveland shed some insight into that. And this is, I don't have a breaking news sort of thing, but this is exclusive. You know why? Because there wasn't any other member of the media at this NIL event. So I'm the only one that heard it. Here's what Colston Loveland had to say about that moment of time when Jim Harbaugh departed. He said, and I quote, Coach Harbaugh was leaving, and he ended up taking a couple of coaches with him. Amongst myself and other leaders on the team, it was tough. We had thoughts in the back of our minds like, man, do we look and see what happens in the transfer portal? Like, do we see what the portal is looking like? Just looking at what was in front of us. But we overcame it all as leaders of the team by coming together. It was uncomfortable at first, but that's what we all needed. Let's get in a room. Let's talk this out and just see where everyone's head is at. Obviously, nobody left. We stayed strong and we stayed together. So to me, that was like the first indication that, like, yeah, when Jim Harbaugh left, there was a group of leaders that were there that were like, okay, what do we do here? Do we look at the portal? Like, how do we want to handle this moving forward? And the group of leaders that are still there at the University of Michigan said, no, we're not leaving. This is where we want to be. We're going to finish what we started. And going back to whatever could come from the NCAA, if these guys had any sort of inkling that something might be coming that could prevent them from reaching their goals and their full potential during what is going to be their last season of college football, I would think they would have made decisions to go elsewhere. So nothing that I've seen happen with the program indicates that anything big is coming.
Yeah, and I feel like it speaks on the culture that Michigan has had under Jim Harbaugh, and I believe it's probably going to be the same under Sherrone Moore. How tight knit the group is. I mean, they met as leaders of the team to discuss what they should do as a group, and they came to the conclusion that Michigan was the best spot for them, because we both know that other teams were trying as hard as they could to steal guys like Mason Graham and Will Johnson and Donovan Edwards away from Michigan. Like we literally know that it's been out there that teams have offered these players money to come play for them. But once again, I think it goes back to the culture of the team, that what they've done at Michigan, what they still can do at Michigan, and just the coaching staff that's around them, that they really enjoy it. They enjoy their time at Michigan, and they want to play for the Wolverines.
Yeah, and Tyrone from the Facebook page, that's exactly right. Men coming together, talking about their future and full steam ahead. That's exactly what happened. And when you talk about, like, I don't know what things are going to look like in 2025. I mean, dude, the idea that Michigan lost so much talent, and then you look at what they've got coming in 2024 and what's still here, and you're like, this team is once again a legitimate conference championship contender, even with the new additions, even with Oregon, even with Texas on the regular season schedule. Like, I think these guys are legitimate, but the level of maturity of these guys to come into a room and talk about their future. No, look, if Colston Loveland, Will Johnson, Mason Graham, or Kenneth Grant wanted to go get a bag elsewhere, it was ready and willing and available. That money was out there and they could have done it. But they opted to stay put at the University of Michigan because they do have that level of maturity. They do have that level of brotherhood. And I think they have a commitment to this program. And I think when you have those things, those are the things that lead to the type of success we saw last season. And there's no indication that Michigan has lost that, even with all the leadership they lost. You lose a guy like Mike Sainristil, you lose Zach Zinner, you lose Blake Corum. Like, those are not easy guys to replace. JJ McCarthy, like, almost forgot to mention his name. Like, you lost a ton of leaders from last year's team, and they've just got more guys coming back. Michigan is at the point now where it's just reload for the program. And so I think it's full steam ahead. You're right, Tyrone. I completely agree with you. But at the end of the day, man, like, Michigan didn't lose anyone of noteworthy to the transfer portal. Sherrone Moore put a solid staff in place, even when he kept losing guys like off and on, like to the NFL, right? Like, there was a while, like, is Clinkscale going to stay? I think he's going to stay. Wait, nope, he's got, like, he had to deal with that shit. It was an ongoing thing. He was able to put together a pretty damn good staff in place, got some people out of Columbus, which I guess they didn't want those two people anyway. And then they've loaded up once again on the recruiting trail. They loaded up in the transfer portal. Just to button it up, I don't see any indication that anything major is going to come from the NCAA. That's just my thought on it, because there's no part of this program that's suffering right now. And it's a beautiful thing to see Michigan being at the level where we all expect it to be, which is in the hunt for a national championship year in and year out. We've been covering the program for 3 years. That's all we know. Like, that's all we're accustomed to, is you just win Big Ten championships and you go to the college football playoff. I think there's a pretty good shot of that happening in 2024, which would be just devastating for the people out there that are hoping and praying for Michigan's downfall. Anything else you want to add to that topic before we move off it?
No, I believe whenever the NCAA actually presents Michigan with whatever evidence they may or may not have, I think it's going to amount to a slap on the wrist. I just don't think that there's going to be much to it, and then rival fan bases will be very sad.
Is there a chance Connor Stallions got to the NCAA? Is he working with them now? Is the conspiracy bigger than we thought, Trent?
This is a tough team right here.
I don't know. I guess we'll see in the coming days. Hopefully we get some resolution on that soon. But yeah, I wouldn't hold your breath if you're hoping it's going to be the proverbial hammer for the football program. Trent, what I want to do is move on to this next topic here. It's not really a topic. I don't know if it's a segment. I don't really know what the hell it is. But the other day I was sitting and I was trying to talk myself into how confident am I with the Michigan Wolverines in 2024. And so I came up with this confidence level list, right? And so here's how the list works. Here's how the numbering system works. I'm going to ask you your confidence level in certain areas of the team, and you're going to give me a number 1 through 5. And I love 1 through 5, Trent. I love the number 5. I just think it's a nice, good, solid number to use. So if you give it a 1, right? A 1 means no confidence. A 2 is little confidence. A 3 is some confidence. 4 is you are just straight up confident. And 5 is you've got total confidence. There is absolutely no question in the world. You believe, that 100%, if you're at a level 5, it's as good as it can possibly be. So I'm going to start off with the staff, and then we're going to go through positions. I'm going to ask you your confidence level, give me a number, and explain why. Let's get to the staff first. Trent, 1 through 5, what's your confidence level with Sharon Moore as head coach?
I'm going to go with a 4. I want to say 5, but I want to see Sharon Moore coach a full season as head coach. He did so many good things last year. He beat Penn State. He beat Ohio State. But again, I kind of want to see that longevity of it. I want to see him coach a full season. If he can get Michigan to 10-2 or better, it'll be a 5, no doubt for me.
All right, so a solid 4. I mean, confident Sharon Moore. We obviously got to see him last season as, acting head coach at the moment, went 4-0, helped lead Michigan to some of the biggest wins. I mean, he was there on the road against Maryland. He was there on the road against Penn State. He was there in Ann Arbor, leading him to a win over Ohio State. And so we know that he's got the ability to do it, but you're right. It's not like Jim Harbaugh wasn't part of the equation. Jim was still with the team during the week. He was still, going through the game plan. This is now 100% Sharon Moore's deal. So I think 4, confident in Sharon Moore. I think that's a solid number to have for Sharon. Let's move to offensive coordinator and Kurt Campbell. We know he was the quarterbacks coach last year. JJ McCarthy spoke very highly of him. You and I got to speak with him after the spring game and the post-game events. What is your thought on Kurt Campbell, confidence level 1 through 5 as offensive coordinator?
So I'm going to go with a 3 for Kurt Campbell.
Oh my God.
The biggest reason why is
I took away the part of the soundboard where the crowd boos. I got to bring that back for segments like this. Damn it.
So he was a quarterback.
Hold on. I got the right one.
Everybody's going to have haters.
There we go. Sharon Moore.
Listen, he was a quarterbacks coach, and now he has a much larger role as offensive coordinator. Once again, kind of like Sharon Moore, I want to see him throughout the season, see how he does as an offensive coordinator. I know he has Sharon Moore right beside him. They can. Sharon Moore was the offensive coordinator, so they can talk about that. But I'm going to go. I'm confident, but I'm not super confident in what Kurt Campbell is going to bring to the table right now.
Not super confident in Kurt Campbell, just some confidence for Kurt Campbell. Let's see if it gets any better on the other side of the ball. Look, you singled him out earlier in the show. You said, with the exception of Wink Martindale, who's like the old geezer.
Hey, what's yours? What's your?
Okay, so Sharon Moore, I am at a 5. I am at total confidence with Sharon Moore. I fully trust in him as head coach. I look at what happened last year, and I acknowledge that Jim Harbaugh was still part of the equation. But, dude, listen to what Sharon Moore had to say in that interview with Joel Klatt when he walked through his line of thinking in the Rose Bowl and the way that he called plays and the way that he thought through the game, what he did against Ohio State, what he did against Penn State, making the decision to run it 32 straight times. I think Sharon Moore has proven fully capable of being head coach at the University of Michigan. And so until he gives me reason to think otherwise, I have complete confidence. I'm at a 5 in Sharon Moore. Now, when it comes to Kurt Campbell as offensive coordinator, I'm a little more in the camp with you. I give him some benefit of the doubt. I'm confident in him, right? He knows football. He's a knowledgeable guy. Anybody who spent time around with him knows he knows what he's talking about. But this is a new role for him. It's at the University of Michigan, and we got to see what the offense looks like with him sort of running the show. Do think it's going to be a collaborative effort with him and Sharon Moore, but ultimately he's going to be the one calling the plays. And so I gave him a 4. I am confident. I don't have total confidence yet, but I'm confident in Kurt Campbell. Let's move to defensive coordinator, Wink Martindale, the old guy on the staff, 20 years in the NFL, part of that Ravens coaching tree, the self-proclaimed OG of the system that has helped make Michigan so dominant defensively. Mike McDonald ran that system. Jesse Minner ran the system. And now the expectation is that Wink Martindale is going to continue that type of defensive play. Where are you at on Wink Martindale 1 through 5?
I'm going with a 5 on Wink Martindale. I know that he hasn't coached college football in 20 years, but like he said, he is the OG of this defensive system that Michigan runs. They return so much star potential, star power on the team, and I think he's going to have an elite defense. I think he's a great mind. While he might only be here for a couple seasons, I think that he was an excellent hire for Jesse Minter.
Yeah, and let's not forget he's elite at Twitter. I mean, if you have Twitter and you don't follow Wink Martindale, like it's comedy, it's gold. Every time he tweets something, it's like at the right time and it's the right thing. And so I'm not quite there with you. Right? I'm at a 4 with Wink Martindale. I need to see it, same as I need to see it with Kurt Campbell as offensive coordinator. I have confidence that Wink Martindale is going to be as good, but I think there's going to be some little wrinkles, some variations. I don't know if you saw the interview he did on In the Trenches with John Jansen, but Wink Martindale was not having the comparisons to Don Brown. He was like, what is it? Because we're both old, I guess that's the thing we have in common. Like, he doesn't like that comparison. He plans on doing things quite a bit different. And so, look, everything sounds and looks good so far, but until I see it in action, I'm going to be at a 4, but dude, there's no question that he's got the pieces defensively to certainly put himself in a 5 and have total confidence in what Wink Martindale is doing on the defensive side of the ball. So to summarize, Trent, with head coach, you're at a 4, offensive coordinator, a 3, and a 5 with the defensive coordinator. I'm a 5 with Sharon Moore, a 4 with Kurt Campbell, and a 4 with Wink Martindale. Let's move to the offensive unit now. Offensive line. This has been a staple of Michigan football. We know that they've excelled on the offensive line, multiple Joe Moore awards under Sharon Moore when he was leading that unit, but you've lost the entire starting offensive line to the NFL. No more Drake Nugent, no more Trevor Keegan, no more Zach Zinner, no more Carson Barnhart isn't there, Trente Jones isn't there, replacing a ton of talent up front, an entirely new offensive line. What is your confidence level with what they're bringing back?
I'm going to go with a 4 on the offensive line. Yeah, I mean, they basically do replace the whole offensive line. I know Miles Hinton comes back. He started games last year for Michigan. But the thing I think people forget about is every player except the right tackle position has played valuable minutes in college football. I mean, you have Gio El Hadi. He started for Michigan before. Josh Preeby, he was an all Big Ten guard for Northwestern.
Yeah, and then you have
and a captain. And then you have the right tackle battle between, I believe, Jeff Percy and Andrew Gentry, which I lean towards Gentry, and I think he's going to be really good. So
2 guys that are both like 6'8", 350. Yeah. I mean, sheer size alone, they got to be all right? Difficult to get around.
So you're replacing the offensive line, but again, they have valuable time, and I think people forget that. And so I'm at a 4 there. If I knew that the right tackle position was going to be just as good as last year, they would be a 5. But that's the only reason it's not a 5 for me.
Yeah, Sam, I'm at a 4 as well. And for all the reasons you said, they've got guys there that have played significant minutes, significant snaps. You singled out Josh Preeby, who Alex Orji after the spring game said, Josh Preby's a dog. And you saw that picture where during spring practice, he got hit in the lip and completely split his lip open, didn't even realize it, kept practicing with blood all over his face, blood all over his jerseys. I mean, those are the kind of guys you want up front. Trevor Keegan painting his face up with the black face paint, like, not going blackface. I'm not saying that, but you understand what I was saying there. Those are the kind of guys you want up front on your offensive line. And so I think that they have those guys. I like Greg Crippen at the center position. You're right. I think, at the tackle positions, we know Miles Hinton actually played some starting reps over there. And so I think he's going to be solid. I just think Michigan has a track record of knowing how to develop offensive line talent. I don't see any reason that there's going to be a fall off, but I am at a 4 simply because you are replacing the entire starting unit. And if you go like a 5 in total confidence, no questions whatsoever, then you're wearing a little bit of the maize and blue glasses. So I think we got to go.
You weren't there. I figured for sure you're going to be a 5.
It was difficult. But I had to plant myself a little bit and get to a 4. We might have a little bit of dissension here or disagreement. Let's move from the offensive line to the quarterback position, where I think if we look at any position group at all on this team, I think you and I would agree that the biggest question mark is at the quarterback position. If they can get it figured out at quarterback, this Michigan football team is going to be very, very good in 2024. I think national championship caliber in 2024 when you look at what they have elsewhere. But you got to get it figured out at quarterback. We know the deal with Alex Orji and some of the concerns that are there, limited reps. Jack Tuttle, he's played a lot of football, but he's never established himself as the guy. Jaden Davis, true freshman, don't really see that being the case. And Davis Warren tends to look good during spring games, but we haven't really seen it transition. And Jaden Denegal, to me, I'm not really sure where Jaden Denegal fits into this entire mix. So 1 through 5 quarterback position, where are you at right now?
I would say a 3, but I could be swayed potentially to a 4. It's just so unknown. You know how I feel about the quarterback room. I definitely feel that Alex Orji is going to be the starter. I love the ceiling that Alex Orji has, but we haven't really seen him throw the football in college. He looked fairly decent during the spring game, but we have to see what he looks like against Texas and USC and all those other teams. So as of right now, it's a 3 for me.
Yeah, Tyrone says 3. Bobby says a 2. Let's see here. Harold says a 2.
I suppose you're at a 5.
A 2 is, let me go back to my metric here. A 2 is little confidence. I don't think that's fair. No, Trent, you might be surprised to know I'm also at a 3 when it comes to the quarterbacks. Now, I'm a big fan of Alex Orji. I'm a believer in who he is and who he can be as a quarterback, but you're right. We haven't seen it yet from any of these guys that are part of the mix. And that's a little bit concerning to me when you're talking about the starting quarterback at the University of Michigan, that the guy who's likely going to be the starter has thrown 1 pass throughout his entire collegiate career. Now, that's not his fault. You're playing behind a guy like J.J. McCarthy. Like, McCarthy's going to get the reps. And I think we saw Alex Orji played his role in the offense well, similar to the way that J.J. McCarthy did it when Cade McNamara was the starter. But until I see it on August 31st, on Saturday night against Fresno State, I'm at a 3. I've got some confidence in this quarterback group, but I need to see them go out and perform on a Saturday before I can move that up to a 4 and a 5. And let's revisit that question after the Texas game and see where we stand. Yeah. I think that would be really interesting to actually, you go through the first 2 weeks of the season and then you reevaluate where you stand on some of these things. And I think that number in particular with quarterback, I think that's either going to move north, we might shoot all the way up to a 5, or we could move south of that number 3.
Yeah, if Alex Orji goes out there and throws for 250 yards and rushes for 75 yards and he looks electric, it's like, okay, Michigan has it. I mean, Michigan could have another national championship season just based off of that game alone.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, will the Fresno State game, will that move the needle at all for you? Regardless of what you see, do you think that that's a good litmus test, or do you think you really got to wait until you see it against Texas?
Well, I think so, just for the fact that he's thrown 1 career pass. Once again, if he goes out there and throws for over 200 yards, he's efficient. He looks good. He can move the chains. And it's not like Fresno State's a bad team. They won 9 games last year, I believe. So Fresno State's been a respectable team for several years now. And yeah, I mean, I definitely think, put it this way, it's not like they're playing the worst team in college football. They're playing a top 50 team against Fresno State.
Yeah, and I think CJ's right here. It's only going to move the needle if it's a bad performance against Fresno State.
Yeah.
Like, if he lights it up, I think everybody's going to be like, all right, let's see what happens against Texas. You know what I mean? But if they go out and they shit the bed against Fresno and the quarterback play looks awful, I think there is going to be some real concerns going into that week 2 matchup against Texas. So we're in agreement there. A solid 3 for the quarterbacks. We have some confidence, but man, we got to see it on Saturdays. We got to see it on the field. Let's go from quarterback to running back now. Completely different situation here. You've got known commodities. You've got Donovan Edwards, who's on the cover of College Football 25, for Christ's sakes. You got Khalil Mullings in the mix. You got Benjamin Hall in the mix. You got Tavi Dunlap in the mix. You got Cole Cabana in the mix. Jordan Marshall in the mix. Like, they are very, very deep at the running back position. But there are some people out there, and I've seen it on our shows, Trent, where we're talking about the running backs. They don't believe in Donovan Edwards. They don't think he's the guy. They've got doubts about him, some doubts about Khalil Mullings. 1 through 5 confidence level when it comes to the running backs.
I am at a 5 on the running backs. I think one thing about Michigan throughout the last several years, they're going to have an elite rushing attack. It's in their DNA. It's what they like to do. We've seen Donovan Edwards shine in the brightest of lights. He's got that star potential. Look what he did against Washington in the national championship game. I believe that Khalil Mullings is very underrated. I think that he's a very good backup running back to Dono. And honestly, I think if Khalil Mullings plays for Northwestern or Iowa, he's probably the starter. But because he's behind Donovan Edwards, he's not. And then, like you mentioned, they have other rotational backs in there that are good too. So yeah, give me a 5 for them.
I do not understand anybody out there that has any sort of like hesitation or concern when it comes to Donovan Edwards. I think this dude, look, I got to spend time around him over the weekend. We know he's put on 14 pounds and I can assure you it's muscle that he's put on. Like, this dude looks like he is ready to carry the load. Mentally, I think he's where he needs to be. That's part of what he's talked about as well. Like, mentally, he just wasn't in the right place for a good portion of the last season. Things didn't go the way they wanted him to go. And I'm sure it's not easy for a 5-star guy to have to sit and wait your turn for so long. I mean, he's going into his senior year at this point, right? And he's finally getting his opportunity. And you just don't really see that in today's college football. Guys that are that highly ranked, that talented, stick around with the same program. Where Donovan Edwards, I mean, you talk about Khalil Mullings being able to go elsewhere and be the starting running back. Donovan Edwards could have gone to 99% of the other programs around the country and been the feature back. It just so happened that Blake Corum was here. And so I think that dude is on the verge, and I want to say on the verge of becoming a superstar. He's already on the cover of the goddamn football game. You know what I mean? So I don't know how much further he can go there, but we have seen it. He is a home run play waiting to happen. I am very, very excited to see what he looks like at the feature back. But we talked about it. It's not just Donovan Edwards. It's the depth behind him. Khalil Mullings, I think, provides a nice 1-2 punch. And then I'm excited to see what's Benjamin Hall going to look like. What's his role going to be? Tavi Dunlap, what's he going to do? They've got guys that can come in and give them solid minutes. And I would assume that against a Fresno State, against an Arkansas State, some of these games, even in Big Ten play, you're going to see some of these other guys get significant carries and start building toward the future like Michigan has done in previous years. But I'm a solid 5, dude. I have zero doubts when it comes to this running back group. So we're on the same page there. Let's move to the tight end group. It's the only starter that Michigan's returning on offense is tight end Colston Loveland. And it sounds like, it's hard for a tight end to work himself into the first round, but there's a lot of people that think Colston Loveland is a future first round pick in the 2025 draft. Where do you stand with your confidence level on the tight ends heading into 2024?
Yeah, I'm at a 5 once again for the tight end. Like you said, Colston Loveland, I think he's the best tight end in college football. I think he was probably number 2 last year behind Brock Bowers. He can do it all. I'm extremely high on Marlon Klein. I think he's going to come in and give you that Luke Schoonmaker type season when he was behind Eric Hall. I think Michigan's going to have 2 legit tight ends. I believe the tight end room as a whole is very, very good as well. And they're going to have tight ends that they can just plug in whenever they want. So yeah, give me a 5 for the tight end.
Did you say the tight end room as a whole? That's odd It's an odd string of words you put together, but I agree with you. I'm at a 5 with the tight ends as well. Obviously, Colston Loveland, I view him as a first round guy. Like I said, I got to hoop with him over the weekend. The dude is, he's everything you want in a tight end from a physicality, athleticism. He's got great hands on him. And then you factor in Marlon Klein, and Colston Loveland was very high. Jesus. Shout out to P. Diddy, by the way. Man, what a turn that's all taken. Goodness gracious. For those listening, it doesn't fucking matter. Marlon Klein, who Colston Loveland singled out during the spring and said, he's faster than I am. He's stronger than I am. Like, he was very high on Marlon Klein. And I said this to you on the last show. When I'd be down on the field taking photos, it was very easy to confuse Marlon Klein with Braden McGregor. And Braden McGregor is a big dude, but they both wore the number 17. They're both tatted up. I think Marlon Klein can serve a big, big role in this offense. And then the forgotten one, Ben Bredesen. Plays tight end, also can play fullback from time to time. JJ McCarthy said the offense goes as number 44 goes. Number 44 is Ben Bredesen. And if you go and you pull his tape from the Rose Bowl, pull his tape from the national championship, watch the way he plays football, that guy is a Michigan Wolverine through and through. Ben Bredesen does the dirty work that really helps the offense do what it needs to do. And so when it comes to the tight end group, you got veterans, you got experience, you got a first rounder who's arguably the best tight end in college football. To me, that's a 5 out of 5 all day long. So we're, once again, Trent, I don't know. We were talking about my fandom, but
we're going to be a little different here on the next one. I guarantee you.
You and I seem to be in lockstep. We might be. Let's get to the wide receivers, because there's a lot of people that, they have concerns about Michigan's wide receiver. They think they got to get a big body guy that, we need a Jeremiah Smith here. I have my thoughts on that, but in terms of the wide receivers 1 through 5, where's your confidence level?
I really want to say a 4, but I'm going to go with a 3. I'm confident in Samaj Morgan and Tyler Morris. I think both of them are going to be good for Michigan, but they are losing Roman Wilson and Cornelius Johnson, who were starters, and they were a big part of the offense. So kind of like the Kurt Campbell thing, I want to see them play, and I want to see Michigan be able to pass the ball. I want to see them get open. So, and once again, I'm also high on Amarian Walker. I think him coming back, being that big-bodied receiver, is going to help Michigan. But until I see it, I'm going to go with a 3.
Oh my goodness! I'm saying a 3, a 3.5, a 3. A 3.5. I've got a 1 here on the confidence. No confidence in the wide receivers. A 2, very little confidence in the wide receivers. I disagree. Obviously, I'm at a 4.
You're offended.
I am at a 4 when it comes to the wide receivers. I have confidence in the Michigan wide receivers, primarily because of the way that Michigan plays its style of offense, and I don't anticipate anything's going to change in 2024. So I think Tyler Morris is a solid target. I think Samaj Morgan, solid target. I think Frederick Moore is going to be a very solid target. And then when you go beyond those 3 guys, you've got a Marion Walker in the mix. You've got a Kendrick Bell in the mix. You went and got some guys out of the portal. Like they have enough weapons at wideout to be as dangerous as they need to be. They do have to prove it, but in terms of what my confidence level is, think about what's asked of Michigan wide receivers. Like, they're not necessarily asked to make big time plays every game. They just need to make them in the moments where Michigan needs them the most. And I think you saw that with guys like Roman Wilson. You saw that with Ronnie Bell. These aren't the biggest guys. They're not the big body, throw it to the back corner of the end zone, I'll go snag it out of the air. You don't really have a Cornelius Johnson on this roster. Could Amarian Walker become that? I don't know. Maybe. I mean, he could even be better. I mean, shit, he's rocking the number 1 jersey. We know that, the expectation that comes along with that. So Amarian Walker needs to play well. But in terms of the bodies that they have in place, the guys that they have there, I am at a place where I'm confident with the wide receiver group. I think they supplemented what they needed to in the transfer portal. I think the guys who are returning are solid. You got Samaj Morgan moving to the number 0. I just think that dude's, when you talk about guys that are on the verge of becoming a superstar, I think Samaj Morgan is right there. He can be a dangerous, dangerous weapon offensively. So I'm at a 4. I've got confidence in the wide receiver group, but I got to say, man, I'm disappointed in some of you people out there. A 2, a 1 with the Michigan wide receivers? Like, what are we doing here? A 2, a 1. 1 is exact. Yeah, I agree, Mark. 1
Come on,
is
Chris, take off those goggles, man. Let's be realistic here a little bit.
he's doubling down. Joseph says 1 is accurate, bro. I just I don't know. And Bell is little. Like, yeah, I've said it before. He's got to put on weight. He's got to put on some muscle. But
no, he's saying Bell's little brother. Like,
Bell's little. Oh, I thought he was saying Bell's little, bro. You know what I mean? Like he's too small. Yes, obviously, Ronnie Bell's little brother, Kendrick Bell. I think that he's a guy that can make some noise. And again, put as much stock into the spring game as you want. But Kendrick Bell made a pretty big catch, and we saw Frederick Moore get the ball from Davis Warren, like, I don't know, 5 or 6 yards away from the line of scrimmage, and then take it 45 yards to the house. He's got the speed, he's got the athleticism. So I like what they have at the wide receiver position. Give me a 4. Trent, you're at a 3. Let me just mark that in here. We are done with the offense, and we are at 54 minutes. We're just going to go to the defense. I'm not going to go to special teams. Well, I mean, there's really only 2 positions. Let's go to the defense. Start with the defensive line. I feel like we're going to be pretty much in lockstep with the Michigan defense, but confidence level with the Michigan defensive line heading into 24.
I'm at a 10. Give me a 10 on the defensive line.
It's a tough team right here.
I mean, you have the best defensive tackle duo in college football. Mason Graham, Kenneth Grant. As much as I like Jalen Harrell and Braden McGregor, I honestly think Derek Moore and Josiah Stewart is an upgrade. I mean, that's tough to do because those 2 were good last year. But I mean, Michigan's defensive line is absolutely stout. They've got guys to come in to rotate that are really, really good. Etta, Rayshawn Benny. Yeah, dude, give me a 10, man.
Yeah, I listen. It's pretty simple. And yeah, okay. Does he have dreads? I don't even know. I didn't even really recognize the dreads, so I feel like that's borderline racist, CJ. What you just said there, but I'll give you a pass. When it comes to the defensive line, it's a 5 all day long. Total confidence in the defensive line, 0 question there. Now, if we're talking about depth, maybe there's a little bit of a question mark there in terms of who those guys are going to be. But even at the depth spot, I feel like they've got plenty of guys where they can rotate and they can still not have a drop off if Mason Graham has to come off the field, if Kenneth Grant has to come off the field. And I totally agree with you about the edge position. I love Josiah Stewart and Derek Moore. It's not to take away anything from Jalen Harrell or Braden McGregor. I thought those guys were fantastic. But I think that the edge rushers that Michigan has now can be even more effective. So I'm very excited about what Michigan has up front. I would argue it's the best defensive line in college football. Some might accuse me of being a fanboy for saying that, but watch these guys play on Saturday. I mean, they're dominant in every sense of the word. And if you look at that PFF mock draft, 2 of those guys up front are projected as first rounders. So you're going to have to deal with that when you're playing the Michigan Wolverines. And that honestly is a big reason why I have so much confidence in this team heading into the upcoming season. It's what they have up front defensively. So can't get any better than Mason Graham and Kenneth Grant in the middle. I did have the edge listed out separately. So I am going to ask you particularly about Josiah Stewart, Derek Moore, that group there, confidence level. I have a feeling where you're going to go, but what's your number 1 through 5?
Yeah, I mean, once again, 5. Like I said, as much as I like Brady McGregor and Jalen Harrell, I feel like the 2 now is a step up for Michigan. And yeah, I mean, maybe the depth isn't it's not what it was, right? Because you had Derek Moore and Josiah Stewart subbing in, so they're not subbing in anymore. They're the starters, but still, I think Michigan has developed and recruited the defensive line as a whole extremely well, edge rushers included. So yeah, give me a 5 there.
All right, let's go to the next one. I think this is going to be interesting. I want to see where your head is at with this because you lose Mike Barrett to the NFL. You lose Junior Colson to the NFL. But when you look at what Michigan has at linebacker, it's hard not to be excited about the 2 guys that are the presumed starters right now. So confidence level, and then we can talk about depth because I think they've got some guys behind the projected starters that are also going to be solid and in the mix and making plays. But when it comes to the linebackers, 1 through 5, what's your confidence level?
Once again, I'm at a 5. Yeah, you're right. Michigan, they lost Junior Colston and Michael Barrett. Both have been there. They're both really, really good. But Ernest Hausman, he was a tackling machine in Nebraska. He comes over, played his role at Michigan last year. It's his time now to step in as a starter. They went out and got Jayshon Barham from Maryland. Dude's an absolute game wrecker. He's athletic. He's quick. He's an open field tackler. he honestly might be better than Ernest Hausmann, which is scary to think about.
I don't think that. I think he unquestionably will be. I mean, I
Yeah.
spent a little bit of time around him at a National Guard event. The dude showed up wearing black Air Force One, so that's all I need to know about Jayshawn Barham. Like, that guy's ready for war. But you're right. I mean, picked off JJ McCarthy in the game against Maryland last year on the road. Like, he was a force, and so I think you're 100% right. I think he will be better than Ernest Hausmann. Not to take anything away from Ernest Hausmann, but
scary to think about.
Jayshawn Barham coming in, rocking the number 1 jersey at the linebacker spot. You're at a 5. I'm the same, Trent. I'm at a 5 with the linebacker group, which is crazy when you think about losing a guy like Mike Barrett and Junior Colson to the draft, and you come right back and you've got Ernest Hausmann and Jayshawn Barham, and you're at a confidence level of 5. I think, listen, where is this at here? I do got to pull this up because hold on a second. It's in the comment section. Let me go back a little bit. Listen, we can make it official. Joseph from the Facebook page, certified hater here. This guy's got a 1 confidence level for the wide receivers and a 3.5 for the linebackers. Joseph,
hey, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt with the receivers. Well, I don't think it's that low.
A 1?
I'm at a 3.
Yeah, but okay, but that means you've got you're what was a 3? I can't even. God damn, I can't even remember my own list here. Let me go back up. So a 3 is some confidence. There's a big difference between some confidence and no confidence. Joseph, I don't know, man. We're just.
Well, Harold from Facebook says we're being fanboys if we're a 5 across the board.
We're not a 5 across the board here. We're maybe you're
3s mixed in there.
There's 3s mixed in there. I'm a 3 at the quarterbacks. What does this say? After the Fresno game, reserve the right to go from 3.5 to 5. Yes, you do. CJ Frazier says Black Forces. It's a wrap. I totally agree. Let's see. Troy Flynn says 4 or 5. Definitely. Yeah. I mean, look, I don't know if it's because, we watched Ernest Hausmann. We know how good he was as a freshman at Nebraska. We saw what he could do last year, playing a supplemental role, behind some well-established guys. And Jayshawn Barham, I think a lot of people are going to be shocked about how impactful he is. He's built, he's athletic. This guy looks like he's kind of like a borderline freak out there on the field. And I think that once the season kicks off and they see number 1 in action at the linebacker position, people are going to be really happy about what they see out of Jayshawn Barham. So we're both at a 5 at the linebackers. Let's move on to the next group. Let's go defensive back, because you've got Will Johnson out there, who's a known commodity, future first rounder. We already know what we have there. You got Makari Page coming back, so you got a veteran there. You lose Rod Moore, that's a difficult loss. But then Sharon Moore and company went out and they supplemented some of those losses in the transfer portal, brought in some guys who have played a lot of football from different levels, different types of backgrounds. What's your confidence level in the Michigan secondary?
So we're grouping the corners and the safeties together.
All of them together. Just the secondary as a whole.
Okay, if Rod Moore was playing week 1, it would be a 5. I'm going to go with a 4. Obviously, they have Will Johnson. He's the best in the game. I fully believe that. After him, though, cornerback wise, while I believe there's some major talent there, and I think they're going to be really good, it's a little bit of a question mark. Safety, you have Makari Page coming back, and you have Quentin Johnston coming back, and they brought in transfers, but I put it this way, I'm a little higher on the safety group than I am the quarterback group right now. So like safety wise, I would probably be a 5, but if we're grouping them all together, it's a 4. So just because of the unknowns, I guess is where I'm at.
Same. And I think even with the fans, we're like, Joseph is look at this, man. He's come around. Now he's at a 5 in the secondary. We see a 4 and a 4.5, another 4.5. Mark says a 4.5, 5 from the, Bobby from the Facebook page says a 5. Call me a fanboy, but those dudes are legit. We got Jennifer Smith saying a 5 from the Facebook page. I think this group has the potential to be a 5. There's no doubt about it, but I'm with you, Trent. I'm at a 4. Having Will Johnson back is obviously huge. Makari Page back there is huge. They've got veteran guys. They've got guys that are willing to step up. Heard a lot of good things about Zeke Berry coming out of spring ball. We'll see what that looks like. I love what I see out of Jair Hill. I feel like that guy's going to be a factor this year. Losing DJ Waller, I was pretty high on him. I thought he was going to be a factor. But again, Michigan went out and supplemented some of those things in the transfer portal. And so at the end of the day, I'm at a 4. I'm very confident in the secondary, but I got to see how they perform. But overall, I think it's going to be difficult to throw the ball on this Michigan defense, and that's why I'm at a 4. I'm pretty confident that you're not going to come into the big house and be able to sling the ball around the field. I think Michigan's going to make you pay for that.
Even that Amir Hall that they got from Albany, he was FCS All-American. You look at his tape, you look at his stats, you look at PFF, he's legit. While he hasn't played D1 football in the Big Ten, it's hard to believe he's not going to be a Josh Wallace type of player for Michigan.
Yeah, I totally agree. And some people look at FCS and they're like, oh, the guy's a scrub. He played in the FCS. Go watch his tape. Go watch the way that this guy plays, the way he makes plays on the ball, and you'll get excited about Amir Hall. So 100%. And yeah, if Keon Sabb had stayed and Rod Moore doesn't get hurt, maybe it's a little bit different. Where the hell the comments keep coming in here? Mark says, imagine if Sabb stayed and Moore didn't get hurt. Yeah, I mean, there's no question that Michigan would be better off, but it's crazy to me that even though those things took place, let me ask you this. If Rod Moore wasn't injured, would you be at a 5?
Yeah, 100%.
That's the difference maker for you?
Yeah.
Okay, the Rod Moore injury.
So you're talking about a safety that's probably a top 3-5 safety in college football. And then you take him out of the equation. I mean, that's, even though they have talent there, Quentin Johnson's good. They got Wesley Walker from Tennessee. I think he's going to be really good. Jared Mangum from Michigan State is going to be good, I believe. But they're not Rod Moore. And I think that's the difference for me.
Yeah, I agree, man. That's obviously a big the Man Mosa. Yeah, confidence level in the Man Mosa is beyond a 5. It's infinite. The Man Mosa has never let me down. But yeah, when it comes to that secondary, man, I think that corner position opposite of Will Johnson, like that's the one thing right now that I got to see. Who's that person going to be? Is it Jaden McBurrows? I don't know. Does Jair Hill come up and play that? Like, who is going to play that position opposite Will Johnson? Like, as soon as we can see that other corner spot is locked down, I think that could move up to a 5 really quickly, which again I think it's an incredible thing to be able to sit here and say that in June when you do lose a guy like Keon Sabb, when you do lose a guy like Rod Moore to injury and probably not going to get him back for the year. So, I mean, overall, Trent, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to try to tally this up. God, I feel like it's going to take a while for me to tally up these numbers. How do you want to do this? Should I go through and add this all up and do the average real quick? Is there something that you think you could talk about for like 2 minutes while I do this? Because I wasn't adding them up while we were going along.
Yeah, I mean, I could answer some questions. I don't know.
Yeah, throw Trent some questions. Throw Trent some questions. Let me do some math over here. I just want to figure out where we're at on our overall. If you've got any questions out there, throw them to Trent.
Well, we already know Chris is going to be a 5, so it doesn't really matter.
No, I'm not. I'm not a 5. Let's see.
So Mark Shake, McBurrows, I think is going to be nickel. Yeah, man, I'm kind of working on a depth chart right now, going into fall, and that's who I have slotted in as nickel. I know that Zeke Berry is kind of the popular pick, and while I think Zeke Berry is going to have a role, I am really high on Jaden McBurrows. What I think most people forget about is he was Mike Sainristov's backup at nickel last season. So he has that experience, and that's who I'm going to go with is Jaden McBurrows.
Interesting. 4.2.
Tony Petrowski, Trent can tell us why he doesn't have a JJ McCarthy jersey. I see this all the time, and trust me, I'm going to get one. When, I don't know, but I'm 100% going to get a JJ McCarthy jersey, and it's going to go up on my wall. I'm going to move the Dante Culpepper over a little bit, and we'll have the JJ right there, right by Jabril.
Well, I'll tell you this, Trent. You and I are pretty much in lockstep, which I think is interesting because I did this exercise before I gave you these numbers. Obviously, I put in my numbers, but so overall confidence level, just to reiterate for anybody who's tuning in late, which I don't know why you would do that, but for anybody tuning in late, I asked Trent confidence level 1 through 5, where you stand on certain aspects of this team. 1 meant no confidence, and some of you actually gave 1s out there, which that's incredibly disappointing. But 1 meant no confidence, 2 is little confidence, 3 is some confidence, 4 is confident, and 5 is total confident. Trent, on our picks from staff, offense, and defense, we never fell below a 4 on our average. So from a staff standpoint, I'm at a 4.3. Trent, you're at a 4. Okay. Offensively, I'm at a 4.25. Trent, you're at a 4.25. And then defensively, I'm at a 4.75. You're at a 4.75 out of 5. So really, when you add that up, offense, defense, coaching staff, we're stuck somewhere between confidence and total confidence, which again, sitting here in June and you look at a team that lost its head coach, lost significant members of the staff, lost nearly 20 guys to the NFL draft and over the offseason. When you look at what this roster has had to overcome during the offseason, and here we are sitting at damn near borderline total confidence in what Michigan's going to do in 2024, I think that really speaks to how well this program is built. And when you break it down position by position, if you're a fan out there and you're feeling high on the Michigan Wolverines and their ability to repeat in 2024, I don't think it's just a byproduct of being a fan. Go position by position and look what Michigan's putting on the field. There's every reason to believe that this is a 10-win team, an 11-win team, a team that's going to go back to Indy, a team that can go into Columbus and beat the Buckeyes on the road. I've got a ton of confidence that that can happen. And so, again, it's all going to have to play out on Saturdays. But as we sit here at the end of June, nearing July, I feel like this is a Big Ten championship team with a potential to make a run at the national championship. The biggest hurdle, the biggest question mark, what happens at the quarterback position? If they get that figured out, watch out for this Michigan team. They're going to be elite once again. Anything you want to add to that before we hop off, as we're now an hour and 9 minutes?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like we could be confident in Michigan because of the defense, which is kind of crazy to think about when you lose guys like a Junior Colson and a Michael Barrett and Chris Jenkins, Mike Sainer still, but they still they return so much star power on that defense, and I feel like that is why Michigan fans should be confident in Michigan heading into 2024. Yeah, it's a brutal schedule. We don't know what the quarterback spot's going to be like, but we believe the running game is going to be good. The offensive line should be good again. And I think Michigan has its DNA of how they can succeed. And I look for that once again in 24.
Yeah. And you know what? Let's finish it because we were busting his balls here a little bit. Joseph was coming in with like, dude, just the rankings, throwing out a 1 and a 3.5. Like there were some issues I took with your ratings here, Joseph, but I think this is a good question. This is a way to get back on the good side here. He asks from the Facebook page, how confident are you guys we win a conference championship for the 4th year in a row? Trent, let me throw it to you. 1 through 5, same rules apply. What's your confidence level that Michigan gets it done?
Well, I'm picking Michigan to go 10-2 with 2 losses in the Big Ten. So while I think they have the talent that they can 100% do it, I'm going to go with a 3.5. Like I can get to that 4, but as of now, 10-2, 2 losses in the Big Ten is not going to win a conference championship.
Yeah, I mean, you know, that's the unknown right there is you've got to play Oregon. You've got to play Ohio State on the road. I know it's not a conference game, but you got to play Texas week 2. And I do think that Texas game week 2 serves as sort of a fork in the road for how the season is going to go. And then you've got the question mark with the quarterback play. So there's a lot of things that need to be answered. But as I sit here today, and we just went through position by position, how we feel offensively, how we feel defensively, what we think about the staff, I'm at a 4. I am solidly confident that Michigan can win it for a 4th straight in a row. Doesn't mean it's going to be easy. Doesn't mean it's not going to come without challenges. But when you look at all the pieces Michigan has in place, they are built to once again go out and win a national, or possibly a national championship, but certainly the Big Ten championship. And for anybody that, you know, would be highly critical of that assessment, I would just ask you, like, would you want to play the Michigan Wolverines in 2024? Would you want to face that defense? Would you want to face a Donovan Edwards and what Michigan brings to the table offensively? I don't think you would. And I think it's really easy when you look at everything Michigan lost to be like, shit, it's probably going to be tough sledding. But if you were a fan of another team, you don't want to play Michigan. Even if you're down in Columbus and you say you do.
This is a tough team right here.
No, you're not. And no, you don't. You don't want to play Michigan in your own building because you know Michigan's coming for a fist fight. Like, that's what they've done over the last 3 years. And I think that's who they're going to continue to be under Sharon Moore. There's a reason why he leads everything with smash, because that's how Michigan operates. So,
yep.
Trent, listen, man, I didn't think we'd do it, but we did. We went over an hour. Full disclosure, I was talking with Trent before the show. I was like, should we just cancel it? Should we not even do a show?
Because I had to talk Chris out of that. You know, I'm like, no, man, let's do the show.
Trent talked me out of canceling the show. I didn't think we'd have enough to go. And then, of course, here we are, an hour and 13, and we're late for another call that we got to be on. So we're going to hop off. But, hey, I appreciate everybody in the comments, highly active. Can't wait to be back here. Are we going to be back next Monday? I believe we're going to be back next Monday. We'll figure that out. Yep. But in any event, appreciate you guys in the comments. Trent, appreciate you, and we'll see you Monday.
All right, man.